Hello, I'm Rich Hammer, legal counsel for the General Counsel of the Assemblies of God. And I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes today about a new reporting requirement for churches that's causing a lot of confusion. By way of background, any church that has employees or that files an employment tax return or has a bank account must have what's called an employer identification number, or EIN. And this includes nearly every church. You obtain an EIN by filing Form SS-4 with the IRS using the IRS website or by submitting a paper form. Since 2010, line 7 of Form SS-4 has asked for the name and Social Security number of a responsible party of the applicant. While this definition is somewhat technical, for most churches it will include the lead pastor, a church treasurer, and members of the church board, any of these individuals. The IRS amended Form SS-4 to obtain the name of a responsible party in order to facilitate communication with employer representatives regarding tax reporting and compliance issues. Well, by 2013, the IRS was becoming increasingly frustrated by its inability to communicate with responsible parties identified in employers' SS-4 forms. This usually was due to the fact that the responsible party designated in an employer's Form SS-4 was no longer serving in that capacity because of death, relocation, or resignation. As a result, the IRS adopted an entirely new requirement that any employer with an EIN report changes in the identity of its responsible party to the IRS using Form 8822B. This new requirement was first announced in a November 2013 IRS newsletter. Many church leaders are asking if this new reporting rule applies to churches, and the simple answer is yes, so long as the church has an EIN. The Form 8822B reporting requirement is mandatory if there is a change in the responsible party identified on the Form SS-4 that a church filed with the IRS to obtain its EIN. But there are no penalties for noncompliance. On the other hand, a church that fails to comply with this reporting requirement and has a change in the person identified as its responsible party on Form SS-4 may not receive timely notices of deficiencies or demands for taxes from the IRS, which could lead to penalties and additional interest charges. The vast majority of churches have had their EIN for many years, long before the Form SS-4 was amended to include the identity of a responsible party. Should these churches file Form 8822B with the IRS, even though they never reported the name of a responsible party in the past? The instructions to Form 8822B do not address this question, and the IRS has not provided any clarification. The best answer seems to be that these churches should file Form 8822B listing the current responsible party's name and Social Security number, and either not disclosing the identity of any former responsible party or listing the identity of the person who was a responsible party immediately before your current one. Again, for most churches, your responsible party will be your church treasurer, lead pastor, or member of the board. Some churches did not apply for an EIN until after 2010, when the Form SS-4 was amended to include the identity of a responsible party. These churches do not need to file Form 8822B if there has been no change in the responsible party listed on the Form SS-4 that you filed with the IRS to obtain your EIN. If there has been a change, you will need to file Form 8822B noting the identity of the new person.